process, here through Jerry and Steven and Mike and Will and the scouts, I guess going on about 20 years for me in the NFL and seeing this process and what it looked like from start to finish, I was certainly impressed by it. But other than that, man, I'm excited to get rolling with you guys. So let's let it rip.
Dan, what was your assessment of this defense after you took over, and what do you feel you've been able to address with this draft and what you've done in free agency in the offseason?
And I think what I can tell you is, I just wanted to make sure from the time I got here to, what it looked like and what we could do and help, create an identity, from a defensive standpoint. That is about the ball and, ball hawking and the speed and the physicality that we'd like to play with. So, first order of business was just obviously going through the team and through the roster, and just like you would do, any year, to make sure you can feature the players in the very best ways. And so, whether it's through the current team, through free agency, or through the draft, that always thought that's my responsibility to make sure I'm clear with everybody about how we'd feature the guys and find out what they do best. So I enjoyed that very much, going through all the games and the players and getting a good assessment on where we're at.
Did you consider it a remake, or did you feel there was a foundation in place and you just wanted to change some things, or what's?
Yeah, there'll always be some change, as you're looking to do things. And so for me specifically, I'd been part of the same system for a good long time myself, both in Seattle and Atlanta for that time. So I had some things that I wanted to change as well. And so certainly a combination of things, of the foundation that, that has been here, as well as some new things that I wanted to bring into it and how we'd play and the style that will do that.
Well, just from a system scheme standpoint, is it this 4-3 scheme is the basis that you guys use in Seattle and Atlanta?
Well, I'd say it's kind of a mixture, because so much of the defense nowadays is played out of a nickel front. So that's more of a 4-down of way you play. As far as in the base packages go, it'll look more like a 3-4 look, and that would have been consistent whether it was the team last year or during my times in Atlanta as well. But more often than not, with most teams, the nickel packages, which teams play, I'd say close to 60 or 70% of the time, are more at a 4-down.
Seems as if you've been always a coordinator or even as a head coach that likes size in secondary. What does that do for your defense?
I think just, one, the length. And you think about, even in basketball, somebody has to go out and defend, to have that length to go defend. And so whether it's at corner, where you can play right down on the line of scrimmage and make receivers have to go and release, or if it's a safety or a linebacker who has to guard, tight ends who have length. When you have length, you can match some of that. And in the NFL, so many of the matchups are created, on size or speed. So you want to have a roster that has versatility. And I think that's one of the things, that I really admire about Mike, and having the versatility of positions where you play more than one thing. And so I've enjoyed, like I said, this process of going through it with Steven and Jerry and Will and Mike, talking about different roles for players. And I think hopefully the next time that I visit with everybody, I'll have a better sense of where we're at and what we can do based on my time on the field with them. But until then, we'll still be working it out, because my job is to make sure I can put the guys in the best spots of the things that make them all unique. And so I look forward to doing that.
How about the defensive line? All three veterans that you signed in underneath the free agency have 34-inch arms. All three linemen that you drafted in the past few days have 34-inch or longer arms. Where does that length show up and why it's so important?
Yeah, I think let's talk first with the big guys in the run game, because when you get a chance to lock somebody out, now you can create that separation to go and defend and make a tackle. A guy like Brent Urban, who has this ability to get somebody locked out, or Carlos in that space. As a pass rusher, obviously, who are you going against are guys who have some long arms. Certainly a tackle, and that's no big secret. But that type of hand-to-hand combat, when you have the length, you can do that. And then out on the perimeter, whether you're at a linebacker or a safety, who has the ability to, like I said, guard the big tight ends. So it shows up in a lot of different ways. Sometimes when you're defending somebody and guarding them man-to-man, or other times in the run game to lock them out, or the last part I would say in the pass rush, that ability to defeat somebody who has long arms. So I think it shows up all over, and that the bigger, the faster, the longer that we can play, the more aggressive we will be, because we like to play certainly in a bold style. So having guys with length and speed and the run and hit factor, that's a big part of it.
What does that mean for someone on the roster who was here before you got here, they might not have that length that is your prototypical type of quality for a guy with 31-inch or 32-inch, 33, or at what point do you draw a line and say there's more to football?
Way more, yeah. I think that's more than fair to say. It's not one size fits all, and what you're trying to do is find, something unique that this player has. And so it's one of the things I enjoy about scouting when we bring a player onto the team. I say, this is the role I see for that person. That doesn't mean every single guy has these certain specific traits, but you do want to find as a coach, what makes this player unique and what things can he do as opposed to the things he can't do. But having speed and length, it helps, but by no means is that there's been plenty of good players that you guys have covered and I've coached that didn't have the same length, but it does give you a good basis to start.
What position is Leighton Vander Esch going to play? What position will Jalen Smith play for you in the senior?
Yeah, both linebacker. That's where they've been and where they're. Oh, you know what? That's as we're getting through it. Like I said, the next time we talk, I'll have better, hopefully some better answers. We've been on the field some together, but what I can tell you is that both these guys are really getting after it and putting in work to to have a fantastic year. So. We've added some other linebackers as well, and so that's why let's get out and work together. There'll be some competition where we're going, but one thing I do know is both these guys are really good players, and as opposed to where are they going to go? It's like, how awesome is that we've got more speed, more length, more run and hit players, and to me as a coach, I couldn't be more pumped for that.
You brought in Keen O'Neal from Atlanta.
Yep.
You're going to use him at linebacker. You talk about the vision for him as well as the vision for Michael Parsons.
Sure. Yeah.
You want to use him.
Yeah, and so Kiki's a player I've known for a long time, and so adding somebody with his speed and his physicality, onto our defense, we just thought, that's something that we need. And so same thing with Micah, to have the ability to add guys onto our defense that have that kind of speed and physicality. I'm really looking forward to seeing the different packages and how we'll feature the guys, and it'll take us a while to figure all that out. But having those types of guys, it makes you want to have, okay, here's some packages, here's how we're going to use the guys. And we're looking forward to doing that.
He will be a linebacker.
He will be a linebacker.
How important is it to have a guy like him and KZ's here as well that they have background with you so they can kind of tell the players, hey, this is what he means, this is what it's.
Yeah, there's it's kind of like they can get help on the communication that much quicker to make sure, nope, this is what Q's saying here. We can go right to this spot and go to it. So having that ability, to kind of pass the message down the line, that's a big piece of it. But the reason they're here is their football ability and adding to our team and what they can bring. Both guys have had real experience as ball hawks. I think Kiki, on the forced fumbles side of things, KZ on the interception side. So having that ability to bring to the team, that's first. That was paramount. But their ability, to kind of pass the message of what I'm looking for, I think that's a big piece too.
We'd love to try to connect dots with your history. So when y'all draft a guy like Micah Parsons, the names like Vic Beasley and Bruce Irvin get thrown around. Is that remotely accurate in terms of what you think Micah can do, adding some pass rush?
I recognize the question, but I think when we get to know each other more, you'll find out that I don't like comparing a lot of players. And for those kids, like which kid do you like better and talk about more. So it's a real disservice, I think, at times to the young player. And I want Micah's identity to be Micah. And I don't want him to say, well, he's like a Bobby or a Vic or this, I just want him to be the best version of him. And so he'll see plenty of tape of players that I've coached at different spots, but I think it's important for a player to, develop their own identity and the unique stuff that they have, because I think, this is their first, start into it. So as we get to know each other better, you'll know I don't do a lot of comparing to players. Just the reason I'm here today is having this opportunity to had a chance to coach some really good players and through my time. So I always have a lot of respect for those guys.
Dan, one of the problems the Cowboys had, obviously, defensively last year was stopping the run. What do you feel like you've been able to do in free agency and in this draft
right.
help solve that problem?
Well, I think when you assess everything, you want to make sure from an entire package that you're versatile enough defensively to have different packages, and also for the different styles of offenses you play. Just think of our league today, to guys, some who are wide open and spread it out, to some who will pack it in and run some option stuff. The Baltimores of the team. So you want to have enough different players that you're versatile enough to adapt to any offensive scheme. Some are going to play in 3 wide receiver sets, and some are going to play in 2 tight end sets. So having guys with different skill sets, that's a big piece to me. And so adding guys like we did up front with Watkins and Urban, who have that kind of size to stand in and go, and then the ability of adding guys like we did in the draft who've got size and speed. Whatever style team that you're playing against, you want to be versatile enough to be able to say, all right, this is how we're going to match up and get it on.
Just because we haven't had a chance to talk to you before, I was wondering just what is maybe the most appealing thing about taking this job and being a defensive coordinator here? Obviously, you would have had other opportunities, but why the Cowboys?
I did, and the reason I certainly chose to come here was, the whole package of it. It's Jerry, it's Steven, it's Mike, it's the defense, it's what I think, the type of program and place that I'd like to be a part of. So it really was a no-brainer for me when the opportunity, was presented to me to come and be a part of this. And so I was very much looking forward to it. And like I said, over the last couple months, I've been really impressed with the process of how it's going. So I'm pumped to be here, man. But it was the whole thing of it, why we think, we can add to, to some of the things here.
Talk a lot about defense, but how exciting is it to have the offensive guys as well, Dak, and then those guys on that side of the ball? Does it make life easier, though, for you on defense?
Yeah, I spoke earlier tonight about the process, and I was impressed by it. And I would have said the same thing had we had 8 offensive players selected. So I don't want you to think I was coming in here thinking, well, okay, good job. But having guys like Dak and to see him develop into the leader he's become, I think that goes a long way. When you have a style of player like that who's leading in that way, and the toughness for a long time having to go against, guys who are part of this offensive line, Zeke, there's some guys that are tough to match up with. So to team up with them, that feels damn good.
What did you do in the couple 3 months between Atlanta and when it ended there and when you got here?
Well, a lot, because during that time I wanted to do as big an after action on my own self to make sure, what could I learn from things that went well and things that didn't go well. And so I wanted to kind of do a 360 on the whole process first, from the scheme side. So that included, defensive cut-ups from 2013 to 2020. And that brought me into some of the system changes that I wanted to implement on the next lap around. I didn't want to just do a rinse and repeat. And so that was a big piece of what I wanted to do. The second part, after the scheme piece, to say, what other things can I, develop from my own self to say, these are some things that I also asked players, I asked coaches, hey man, if there was a, one thing that you'd like to see, I wanted real feedback to say, I want it like right between the eyes, give me, your vision, your truth. And so a lot of those conversations were good, and they've helped me already, starting into this job. So I did a lot, to try and make sure, as the defense coordinator, opportunities were going to present themselves, that I would have, be a better version of me, as opposed to just right at the end of the season, you're going into the next lap and, hey, this is the system, this is how we're going to go. So it allowed me some time to study teams. It allowed me some time to study some offenses. And at the time, it was painful to go through, but I would say looking back now, it was some of the most rewarding time, because you just don't get to generally do that type of deep dive and background on yourself. If season ends, you're here, usually your combine, and then you go. And so for me, having those couple of months to reflect and say, what'd you like, what do you want to do better, and now you can apply it, that was a pretty cool time for me. I wouldn't recommend doing it, but I would also say it was really valuable for me.
What was the best thing you heard from somebody, that either critically or complimentary?
Yeah, I would say, well, like most of us, you're probably looking for the critical things first. And don't spread yourself too thin. Like a lot of us, I like solving problems, and I think as a head coach, you do that, and I can help with that, and I can help with that, and hey, I can help with that, and so I just wanted to make sure, like as I was heading into this one, man, just the best thing you can do is to help this crew and this group, as opposed to taking on too many things. Sometimes I think when we spread ourselves too thin, and here and here and here, then like, hey man, keep it really tight. And the things that I can impact the most, obviously here, is the defense. And so I want to make sure just that's where my time and my focus goes to.
A lot of times
it came from a good place, I guess, to try to help and do the other things, but at the end of it, I wanted to make sure, like, hey man, just keep it right in the middle.
Were you committed to getting back into the league right away, versus, or were you just open to it, or was there? What was your thought process there? Because some people like to get away for a whole year.
Yeah, right. That wasn't an option for me. Like, I absolutely love what I do, and so it wasn't going to be a matter of you take a year off and come back to it. That wasn't the space I was in. Maybe because I had those couple of months to reflect and dig deep on the things that I wanted to, but it hadn't crossed my mind not to. I think what I learned the most about my life is, like, I like to do hardship with a group of people, and I like that more than anything. And so standing right on it at the game's on the line, 30 seconds left, like, I love that more than anything. And so not being a part of that connection and being a part of the team, that was as hard as anything of being out. And so I love that more than anything. And that's why I coach. I love teaching, but doing hard things together, man, and you went in when the game's right online, like, I love that more than anything. And so that's why I do what I do, and I love, helping develop players. So it was never a, something that I didn't want to continue to do.
How do you get guys to play hard for you?
Well, I think, one, they play hard for each other, first. And that's, to me, where it always comes down to, the guys that you play together and you look back, years later, it's like, man, I covered kicks with that guy, I played defense with that guy. Those are those connections. And that's, to me, where it stems. It's one thing to be close with their coach, with me, but that connection that they have together on the field, on those game days and playing so hard for one another, that's the accountability player to player that you look to. So they don't want to let their teammate down, and so, like, straining and going for it and their connection together. To me, the best teams have been really good in the locker room first, because they just don't want to let the dude right next to him down.
The draft is over now. It's time to develop this class. Based on your experience, how important is the existing locker room, the group that these guys will be joining and kind of looking to learn from, for that draft class to reach its full potential?
Yeah, I think it's huge. And one of the questions I generally would ask is, what would you have given as a rookie for someone to tell you and take you under your wing, when you first arrived here, of, how's this going to go down? What do we need to do? And if you asked them, they'd say almost anything to have that kind of support from one another. So this current group of guys are going to be playing some, whether it's rookies or the new free agents that are part of it. So I think it's extremely important to have some player-led leadership towards one another. That same connection I was just talking about, player to player, and how important that is. Those are built during the times now where you do the workouts and in camp and at practice. So it's going to be a huge part of it.
What type of player leadership do you think your defense has? Or is that something that, as a newcomer, you need to wait and see and hope for the best?
Well, I think you have to put some plans in place, but I do think there's some excellent leaders here. We just, I spoke about Dak just a moment ago, but I've certainly been impressed by a number of the guys already that I've spoken with. But until those interactions happen without the coaches, I'm not part of those right now. And so seeing how hard guys are working here, I was very impressed by that. So, just knowing how important it is, you can feel it from them. Their intensity for it. We're putting in the system together, and the questions that come up, like, they're in it, and you can feel that. And so, to me, that's a great first step. And then now, how much can they relentlessly compete over the next 6 or 7 weeks to put this package together, to connect, the collaboration? It's a big part of it.
Well, just look at 8 guys on defense. You look at the size. Big corners, big guys. This is a Dan Quinn draft. How much impact?
It's a Dallas Cowboys draft. But what I can tell you, and like I said, I was glad with the process. I still would have been happy if we came in here and they had, 8 offensive players and 3 guys. So I was happy with the process, and it just how the board fell. I'm sure the guys, you probably visited with them already, but having players with the skill sets that now it's up to us, okay, to all the unique things that a player has. Now you want to put them in a position where they can utilize those things. So I'm looking forward to find out what some of the superpowers are of what some of the guys have, and then create them and put them in the roles to have the responsibilities for that.
I guess I was saying that you were brought here to fix the defense. It was bad last year, and they spent a lot of resources in free agency to draft to fix the defense, and that's kind of what I'm saying. That's all tailored to help you do
I think it's tailored towards us, being the best versions of us, and I'm so pumped to be a part of that. Like I said, what do I like doing? Like doing things together as a group, and so getting this whole defense connected, player to player, coach to coach, coach to player, all of that, that's all part of my role, and it's one that I like a lot. And so I'm looking forward to getting these guys connected and having a common mindset of how we want to play and what we want to be about. And I hope when all of our fans and friends and family watch us play, they're like, man, these guys, they can get it on, and they're down for the long haul, and the toughness, the speed, the physicality shows up every time we go.
Dan, can you tell fans who they're getting in terms of you? Because there's different perceptions of you. There's some fans that have the perception of he was the great defensive coordinator that won a Super Bowl. Then there's fans that look at you and say, here's a guy that went to the Super Bowl, had a lead, couldn't get it done, and stayed on with the Falcons, and that he was a part of the guy that was here with the watermelon kick. So who are fans getting in Dan Quinn?
Well, much like a player, I guess I have to prove it. And what I would say is, what you can count on from me is somebody that's, real specific in how we're going to go about it and get after it. And I'm very much looking forward to proving that. The very best competitive moments in my life have come from prove-it moments. And like all competitors, I very much enjoyed doing that. So I guess we'll have to see.
What made you want to get into this business in the beginning? Why go down this path?
When I first was coming up, I grew up in New Jersey, about 20 miles west of Manhattan. I wanted to teach and coach, and that was kind of the vision I had for it. I loved, I played a bunch of sports, but I wanted to teach and coach. I went to college. I was an elementary ed major, and then my very first job, was got my teaching certificate. But then as I got into college, I thought, well, I'd like to take this further and do it as a full-time thing, and did that in college for 6 years. And then when the opportunity came to the NFL, I kind of thought, well, that's the highest in our profession and that we can get to, and so I wanted to go after it as hard as I could. I love the connection. I love to teach. I love the competition. So it's, I guess, all of those things wrapped up. I think the first part of my job is teaching, and then developing a player to say, all right, this is where we're at, and how do we get to this spot? And there's a lot of steps along the way, but we're not going to skip one of the rungs to get there. Like, man, we're going to stay on the process to get us there. But I guess, like at the end, like I said, I love doing things with a group together. But it's nice to know early in life I found what I wanted to do, and then I never had any other option. I said if I probably did something else, it would have been in the military, probably for that same thing. That I so much loved being a part of a team, and so I think those would have been the 2 things that would have lit me up the most.
Was it tough for you to do the 360, look back on your scheme, look back at how you do things, or was that just an easy thing to do?
No, it wasn't easy, because I didn't want just all the things, hey, keep doing what you're doing, or that. So I wanted real feedback, like most competitors and players, where they say, like, hey, I wanted to get to the truth of things that went well, and I wanted to get to the truth of things of, like, hey, man, this could have been done better. And so otherwise, some of the pain of going through it wouldn't have been worth it. And so I wanted to make sure, like, that I learned from this, and I grew from this, and I could apply it to to my opportunity here in Dallas. And so I'm certainly glad that I did do that. Like I said, it wasn't the easiest process to go through, but I'm for damn sure glad that I did it. And I can already tell you it's made me a better coach just by having that feedback. I've learned a lot from players through the years, and I've been super fortunate to coach a lot of good ones. And so looking back, I wanted to have that type of interaction, and that's also talking to players that you may have cut, or maybe even a coach that you had to, move on from. But having that kind of feedback, that was super important to me, and I really respect and appreciate, the people helping me on that big project.
The best leaders that you've been around, or the locker room leaders, players, What traits did they have? What were their actions that you saw?
I think number one, like authenticity, and you've got to be, who you are, because you can't just step out there one day and then step back. And so the very best leaders that I've been around were ones that was like, man, you can count on this to be the same today and tomorrow. And they get close and connect with people. So, because as a leader, you have to say, some things that can be uncomfortable, but you have to be willing to say them. It doesn't mean you have to say them in an uncomfortable way, but you got to be able to say them. So I think the authenticity, the honesty, that comes out. And whether you're a mentor or a leader, you do have to give the feedback. And you have to walk that walk, like you can't, hey, well, I want to do this, and, then you don't do it the very next day. So I think, relentlessly being consistent. I know that's not a very sexy word, but it's really hard to do. And most of the very good leaders I've been around have had that.
Dan, what's the advantage of bringing in Joe Vitt and then bringing your D-line coach, guys that already understand exactly what you know, that you don't have to coach the coaches?
Right. And I think, I think they're excellent teachers. And that's one of the things I look for, as a coach, to say, I want to be part of a developmental staff, meaning we're going to take every single player as far as we can. And both Joe and Adden had those, attributes going in. I've seen it firsthand, taking somebody from step one all the way, to where we want to get to. And then there were some excellent coaches that were here. And so, I was fortunate, to know and get to visit with the guys that were here. And so, a guy like George and, Al Harris or Kat, the guys that were here, and having a chance to merge that group. And that was a big piece of it. But I would say they also understand, like we had talked about with the players, behind the scenes, hey, this is what Dan may mean on this. And so, like most relationships, it takes, some time to get going. The first couple meetings, it was slow. It's okay, man, like sitting on our hands, that's not going to be the answer here. So, let's push it and force it. And we've had excellent dialogue, conversations. There's a big background, think about 150 years of experience on the defensive staff. And so I wanted to dig into that and find it, because it wasn't going to be just one way that we do it. And so this off season, putting this package together, it's been a good collaboration. And Mike's been a part of that as well. I wanted to hear his insight and what was hard from the quarterback's viewpoint. And I don't think I've ever had that on the defensive side, putting the package together. And so you can imagine what an advantage that is for me to say, does this make a difference to this? No, but this would. Okay, that's now in. So I am looking forward to putting this whole thing together.
You want to be a head coach again?
You know what, man? I've learned, be where your feet are. And in the past, maybe even as I was a D-line coach, I was chasing, I just wanted to be a D coordinator. I've been a D-line coach in the NFL. Or as a defense coordinator, I've had way more fun and way more success when I was just trying to crush it where I was and having a blast. So where I'm at right now, I'm enjoying it, and honestly just want to be right where my feet are and kicking ass and having a blast with this crew and this team and this organization.
We've heard former players of yours talk about your energy and you as a teacher. How hands-on are you as a teacher in the defensive coordinator role, or do you kind of try to leave a lot of that to your position?
No, and it probably goes back to why I want to, so badly. Why did I not want to sit out? Because the time on the field, that's the best part of the week for me, in the preparation phase. I like teaching in the classroom, but the on-the-field work, in the drill work, that part is, it's priceless for me, because you can give instant feedback to somebody about their technique, about where they're at, and having that energy, man, that's the best. So I love being hands-on with the guys. I'll be involved in the drill work with them. But I want to feel them. I want to know them. And it's the only way I can do that is to build those relationships with them and spend some time with them. That's in the meetings. That's, out on the field. It's in the locker room. It's everywhere. And so I haven't been able to do that yet, because of the, where we're at. So, speed dating online isn't all it's cracked up to be, So the best part of coaching is really, for me anyway, is these connections, and they're lifelong with players. And so I still keep up with guys that I coached in the 90s and the 2000s and last year. So I enjoy that a lot, and so I'm looking forward to building some relationships with the guys here.
You talked about your bonding with the coaches, and have you talked to Foster at all about the watermelon kick?
It was playing when I first got here, and then Zeke ran over one guy, and I was like, "Hey, man, can we take this game off?" You know, like I'm walking down the hallway, and I'm like, "Isn't this part of the reason I'm here?" You know, so I was like, yeah, it was honestly a fantastic, kick by the guy, and so, but no, we didn't have a lot of conversation about it.
Do you plan to spend more time in the defensive line room, just given your expertise and background there?
Yep.
As a young coach, did we discuss that?
Yeah, no, that's where I think you always want to have, where can you make the most impact? And so for me and my background, that's the spot. And so I look forward to doing that.
How are you structuring your time allocation there? Will you be in the meetings? How regularly are you going to be on the field when they're in individuals, or what is that?
Yeah, I'll be in a number of different spots, depending on the day or the emphasis of that day or the things that we're trying to hit on. So meeting wise now, I'm in all three position groups. Just this day I'm working on this, and the night before I'll discuss, hey, I'm going to be in the first 10 on this part. I'd like to hit on this, and then hey Joe, I'm going to come into the DBs when you get to this spot. And so because those meetings are online, so it's pretty easy to structure which parts you want to be a part of at the moment. But I do some meetings with the overall group, and then they split up, from there. So there's a lot of ways that I'm doing it. On the field, it'll be a little bit of the same. There'll be days I'll be with the D-line, other times I'll be, with the DBs. So just depends. It's also how I get connected with the guys.
You'll be tilted toward the D-line though, a little bit.
Yeah.
What's your vision for the defensive tackle, also from UCLA, and then that big nose tackle from?
Yep. So got it. So with Osa, we really see him impacting the team as a nickel defensive tackle, and we want to really push him as a rusher, and he's got the traits and the speed to do that, and so that's what his primary spot will be. But like I said, I'm hopeful I'll have more answers the next time we talk out in California. So is that the next time, Rich?
Worried about the location and the time.
Yeah, and then with Quentin, we're going to put him out on the edge as much as we. No, I'm just kidding. He's going to be right over the center. Sometimes here, other times right there. But he's a big guy. He's got great length. He can really bend, and so he's a nose tackle. So different spots for those two players. And like all the guys, I'm clear on their roles and what they can do. And now it's up to us to get them to do that spot over and over and over again. That's how you get good at it. All right, you guys have a good one. Enjoyed spending time with you.
Scott's